Welcome back. DA leader Helen Zille says she wants a public debate with the president. Helen Zille claiming that the government needs some new ideas on the economy. Well, let's get to grips with this. I'm now joined by the Premier of the Western Cape, also the DA leader Helen Zille, joining us from our Cape Town studios. Premier Zille, a very good morning to you. Thanks so much for your time in talking to us. Let's get straight to the point of this. You have called for a debate, particularly on economic policy. In about a minute, if you can, how does your economic policy differ from what the ANC has at the moment?
Well, firstly, nobody knows what the ANC's policy is. There's the National Development Plan, which we think is a very good plan, but the ANC is very divided about that plan, and certainly Jacob Zuma has shown no hint of leadership in implementing that plan. In terms of our plan, the 8% growth and jobs plan, it has a strong alignment with the National Development Plan. But the bottom line is, all our policies are geared to making it easier to create jobs and get jobs, because our greatest problem in South Africa is poverty and unemployment. And so we know that government doesn't create jobs, new businesses create new jobs, and growing businesses create new jobs. And so if we want 5 million new jobs in South Africa, we need 1 million new small businesses. And all our policies are focused on simplifying the regulatory environment to enable businesses to start, because people who start businesses can choose to start them anywhere in the world. Why would they choose to start them here? So we have to create a regulatory environment that encourages people to invest here, and incentives where necessary, a youth wage subsidy, an opportunity voucher scheme that gets people into the economy. Those are some of the key components of our approach.
Well, let's discuss the potential new idea then that you might have. I would imagine you have something to comment then with regards to Marikana and the mining sector. How would you handle this differently to what the ANC and the president is doing?
Well, first of all, you have to get to the root cause of the problem, and we believe it is Section 26 of the Labour Relations Act, which enables a big union and a big employer to exclude all other unions from the process of collective bargaining. And that, of course, creates massive dissatisfaction and doesn't create opportunities for people to be at the bargaining table to stake their claim and to make their argument, which then leads to illegal and wildcat strikes, as we've seen at the moment. So we have to amend the Labour Relations Act. We have to make it possible for people to come to the table when they have a lower threshold of workers, and we can't keep out smaller unions from the bargaining process. That is the first thing that has to happen, and President Zuma must face down his Labour allies in order to achieve that.
Speaking of Labour allies, I would like to put this to you. You're suggesting that working together along with the biggest unions in the country to solve the problems. Yourself and COSATU haven't always seen eye to eye. How would you potentially work alongside COSATU?
Well, the point is that a government doesn't have to, or actually shouldn't, work alongside a labour federation. A labour federation should be part of civil society. And there is a conflict of interests when one big dominant union actually colonizes government and holds government to ransom. That closes down the space, it closes down the separation of powers that we need to run a democracy. So of course, trade unions have a right to exist, and we believe that more trade unions have a right to exist, and that one trade union shouldn't dominate every single industrial space. So we believe in more choice, more freedom, but we also believe that government is different from the trade union movement and should not be part of it.
But you would work alongside COSATU if pushed to do so, Premier?
One would work alongside all the social actors. That is the entire point. Government interacts with all of the social actors: business, labour, civil society, the opposition. That's precisely why we want a debate with the president. Of course we would, but we don't believe that one trade union federation should be integral to government. We believe that that is a conflict of interests.
I imagine then you and I would agree that having a debate would be to find solutions and find a way forward in many issues that the country is facing. If I can turn our attention to education for just a moment, I'm sure you'll agree as well. Before employment comes good education. Why then is the Western Cape government closing down 20 schools by the end of this year?
Well, it's part of improving education for many children. The fact is that those schools have been studied in depth, each and every single case. And in all examples of the 20 schools that have been now decided to close, we are convinced that the children can get better education accessibly nearby, and that is what we're trying to achieve.
If I can, we have been talking about this interview between yourself and I for some time to our viewers. Premier, if I could bring in one question from a viewer. The water crisis in Mpumalanga, aging infrastructure is to blame there. If you were, for example, in charge, how would you try and turn that around? And how would you do it so quickly? You can't change aging infrastructure.
Well, that is the tragic point. You have to, in a government, plan properly and plan over a long period of time. So the problems that people in eMalahleni, for example, are reaping at the moment are a result of many, many years of neglect. And that is the core problem. Certainly, when the DA takes over badly run ANC municipalities after a long time, it takes years to turn them around. That is why you don't see the effects of good governance immediately, but you see them over time, when water continues coming out of taps, when electricity stays on, when traffic lights work, when you can drive on the rolls without potholes. But that is a result of years and years and years of good planning, good maintenance, and zero corruption. And that is what we would have to catch up if we won in any other municipality where there has been ANC misgovernance for so long.
The youth, certainly the way of the future as far as employment is concerned. The youth wage subsidy, it's been backwards and forwards, and there is major opposition. There's also many people in favour of it as well. Exactly how would you implement that on a broader scale? It's one thing to do it perhaps down in Cape Town in the Western Cape, but this is a national debate you're potentially asking for. How would that work on a national scale?
Well, the Treasury has a very good model. We support Pravin Gordhan's model and the Treasury's model. And we strongly support the National Planning Commission's proposals with regard to a youth wage subsidy. So the national scheme, according to the Treasury's model, would work on a tax rebate system in decreasing amounts the higher the person is earning. And more people would therefore be absorbed into the economy and be promoted and improve their skills and become taxpayers themselves. We think that the Treasury's model is a very good national model, and we would back that.
Just as a final answer, if you could, we are quite tight on time. I'd like your response to the police killings in Cape Town at the moment. There are roughly 4 police officers that have been attacked. As briefly as you can, Premier, what is your solution to this? It's becoming a problem down there.
It's a tragic problem, and people have asked for more visible policing. So certainly the police are providing more visible policing. And the police officers, 1 metro policeman and 2 other police officers, were doing visible policing, 1 on the N2 and the other 2 in Imizamo Yetu, which is a shack settlement, and the 3rd in another area. We're stepping up visible policing, but of course criminals don't like visible policing, so they try and shoot the policeman. And it is a crime of a particularly horrific order to kill the people who are there to protect us and to protect lives and to protect property. So as visible policing is being stepped up in response to people's demands, so the murder of policemen by criminals is stepping up, and it is a particularly heinous crime. Fortunately, there have been arrests in 3 out of the 4 cases so far, and we will make sure that the wheels of justice grind very finely.
You're calling for a national debate, and all you and I have is just a few minutes with each other. My thanks to you, DA Leader Helen Zille, joining us from our Cape Town studio. So many issues I know that many people had gotten hold of us for to bring up with the Premier. My apologies, we just simply don't have enough time to go through them all, but no doubts we did cover the majority of what we had to try and get through. My thanks again to Helen Zille. Now here's your top stories.